This photo from the early 1900s is immediately striking.
She's a wonderful representation of tattooed women.
Almost the representation of tattooed women.
It's a photo of Maud Wagner, a true pioneer in Western tattoo history, unafraid of breaking societal conventions. Because not only was she a walking piece of art, she was also an artist herself. Thought to be America's first professional female tattooist, she broke through into an art form historically dominated by men.
Maud, like many of the tattooed ladies of her time, really influenced American culture in providing a visual model for women with tattoos. The combination of the tattoos and honestly the lack of clothing in public, those two things, she was really ahead of her time.
To be that proudly different, she was going to have to be brave.
She's so confrontational.
She's got this sort of almost chin-up, defiant, challenging look to her, which I think really sets her apart.
In Edwardian times, it's like women weren't even supposed to take their gloves off in public.
She had to be really strong.
Born Maud Stevens in 1870s Kansas, her early life was far from what she would later become known for.
She grew up on a farm. She had two sisters, parents, lived a fairly normal working-class American farm girl lifestyle.
As many good adventure stories start, all that changed when she left to join the circus. It was while working as a contortionist and aerialist in this travelling circus that she met Gus Wagner, tattooist and former merchant seaman at the 1904 World Fair. Legend has it that in return for going on a date with him, she made a deal that he would teach her how to tattoo. Well, they fell in love, married within a few months, and spent the rest of their lives together as both tattoo artists and as circus attractions themselves. Or at least that's the story, but what is undeniably true is that she blazed a trail for others to follow.
For me, just the most striking tattoo is the chest piece, because it's just such a crazy scene, you know, to have this woman who's lounging with these two huge lions and then to have the random palm trees behind her and the little sun in the background.
I'm not sure what inspired the image, but it's an amazing image.
They were the opposite of the time she lived in. You know, for a woman to have these images.
That's why we're still talking about her.
For Native Americans and other ancient cultures around the globe, tattooing has a rich history going back thousands of years, for both men and women. And if you look around much of the Western world today, you'll see tattoos everywhere. But that's not always been the case, and the transition from taboo to tattoos everywhere was far from linear. Perhaps surprisingly, in the late 19th century, tattooing experienced a wave of popularity throughout American society.
Tattooing went through this phase when it was associated with royalty. You know, it was like a thing for some of the aristocracy to go to Japan and get tattooed as like a souvenir.
But by the time Maud was inking up her first tattoo needle in 1904, that had drastically changed.
At this time period, at the turn of the century, many native tribes were actually having tattooing banned in their cultures.
Even among white Americans, tattoos had become denigrated as the indulgence of sailors and delinquents. No longer were they high society.
Gus was a sailor, the opposite of the aristocracy. I mean, these were, you know, very rugged outsiders, and so they got tattoos to mark them as part of that subculture.
But by pioneering that subculture, Gus and Maud carved out successful careers for decades. Their daughter, Lotiva, even went on to become a tattooist herself. Eventually, Gus died in 1941, and Maud passed away 2 decades later. Ironically, the same year that New York banned tattooing, further highlighting America's complicated attitude towards tattoos.
Tattoos are so mainstream now, and they've been like so embraced by popular culture. It really sparks your imagination to think of what her life was like, to do something that was so provocative and just so unacceptable. I would just love to go back in time and just be able to like see how people reacted to that. When I first started getting tattooed, being like a young girl and stuff, it's like I felt like they gave me this power that, you know, I wouldn't normally command. So I think there's just something in Maud that we can relate to and aspire to.